Hello, and welcome to my Mage guide. Today we're going to take an in-depth look at Arcane Mage in the War Within, where we will be covering both Spellslinger and Sunfury specs. If you're new to Arcane, or new to Mage in general, you've come to the right place. Together we will explore the core functionality of Arcane Mage, so by the end of this video, you will be equipped with all the tools needed for success. Let's start with the core feedback loop of Arcane. This is clearcasting, and it appears around your character like this. When you have clearcasting, you can cast arcane missiles to consume the buff, or you can consume clearcasting with arcane explosion. Once you cast arcane missiles or explosion, you lose clearcasting, and you gain a buff called Nether Precision, or Nether, and it has 2 stacks. This buff empowers your next 2 spells of Arcane Blast or Arcane Barrage, and loses a stack each time you cast either Blast or Barrage. And finally, when you cast Blast, Barrage, and other arcane spells, you have a chance to get clearcasting again. So clearcasting leads to Nether, Nether leads to Blast Barrage, and arcane spells lead to clearcasting again, completing the feedback loop. For now, we'll set this core concept aside and focus on the other half of what makes an arcane mage unique: charges. Charges are the 4 orbs here, and they operate on a build and spend system. I like to think of charges as a measure of strength. The more charges you have, the stronger you become. There are several spells that give you charges, such as the ones you see here, and how we release or spend charges is by casting Arcane Barrage. I want you to keep the following in mind. Always be gathering charges, and only release them when you can recover charges, or you are low on mana. This will make more sense as we progress through this guide. For more information on how charges work, I've made a video dedicated to just that. The link is in the description below. So let's review what we've already learned. Casting arcane spells gives you clearcasting. Consuming clearcasting gives Nether. And you are given the following choices on how to use your 2 stacks of Nether: Blast Blast, Blast Barrage, Barrage Blast, or Barrage Barrage. But which combination should you use, and when? We know that Barrage spends all of your charges, right? So if we use Barrage as our second spell, we have just spent all of our charges, and now we are weak. So we need a plan to recover those charges quickly with our builders. Remember, we are trying to keep a high charge count, as well as have the Nether buff. In this example, we just got clearcasting as we got our 4th charge. And we chose to consume our Nether buff with Blast, then Barrage. See here, we are using Blast at 4 charges. Then we use Barrage, and then recover those charges with Arcane Orb. For this example, we'll say the Arcane Orb hit 3 or more targets. See how that works? Consume Nether, recover charges. Think of it as Nether, then recover. Always the Nether first. So let's try to put to use what we just learned. Here's us, and here's the charges, and here's our training dummy. And we're going to start the rotation just with Arcane Blast. We're going to spend arcane spells so that we can get clearcasting. Now, you're going to see buffs popping up here. You're going to see stuff shooting out. I don't want you to pay attention to that. I just want you to find the clear casting. This is Impetus, and it is important to pay attention to. That will come in later. But right now we're just looking for clear casting, and we have it right here. So the first thing we looked at was spending clear casting for Nether precision. And we said we could blast afterwards, right? There's one, and there's two. So we don't have any charges to recover, so let's see if we can get another clear casting so that we can use missiles. Okay, there's the clear casting. We're going to clear cast, Nether, blast, and blast. That's pretty easy, isn't it? So let's look at this guy here. This is Palm, and this makes your next two Arcane Blasts instant. And if we know we Arcane Blast twice after we missiles, we can weave that in. So, first step, clear casting. There it is. Missiles, Palm, and then blast. And that's our first set. Our next one we're going to be looking at is kind of your bread and butter. And that will be get missiles, or shoot missiles, get clear casting, Nether precision, blast, barrage. So let's get that combination. There's Impetus. Just note it. You don't have to do anything with it right now. So here's our clear casting. So missiles, blast. See how we used one there? And then we'll brush. Oh, and we shot an orb out, which gave us 2 charges. Okay. Let's see if we can do that combo again. We'll get clear casting. There's Impetus. And there's clear casting. So use it, get precision, Nether precision, blast, and then brush. Hey, I shot another orb out. That's awesome. But let's say we didn't. Okay? Let's say we didn't. I'm going to get rid of charges here. Or attempt to get rid of charges. Here's our clear casting. We're going to clear cast. Blast. Barrage. But look, I'm weak. I have no charges right now. So we have to recover. So we'll recover our charges. Oh, we got 3 there. We use our clear casting. Get Nether, blast, barrage. And then recover again, because I got another orb here, right? When you shoot out an orb, you instantly get 1 charge. And you get 1 charge for every mob you hit afterwards. So, if I release my charges now, and I scoot up just a little bit, you see these 2 mobs here? I'm going to release orb, and get my 1, and then the 2 more. You notice there was a delay there, and that's because orb has a travel time. I like to think of Arcane Mage in The War Within as almost a mid-ranged or melee class because of travel times. It's simply travel times. Because this was much faster than what it was over there, because I'm much closer. So now let's look at our other combination. It was barrage and then blast. So let's use clear casting. Barrage, then blast. I know if I barrage, I lose all my charges, but I can recover them this way, and then do my blast. Let's see that again. That was pretty quick. We'll get our Nether, blast, or I'm sorry, barrage, recover, blast. And what that does is it lines you up to use blast when you have 4 or more charges, theoretical charges, and that's to help proc Impetus, which is a 10% damage increase. So there was that combination. So let's see the final combination, which is barrage. What's our first step? Yep, it is clear casting. There's Impetus. And I have noticed that while I'm recording, the proc rate of clearcasting is reduced by 6,000%. So we have it, and then we're going to do Barrage. This one's going to be a little trickier because I have Barrage, and now I'm weak. Oh, I got Orb still, so I can use that. Or, you can use this little fella over here, which is Touch of the Magi. And when you cast Touch of the Magi, you get all 4 charges. And it just so happens that with this back here, I have this talent called Magi Spark. I do have a video on how to do Magi Spark, and I'll link it in the description below. But for now, it's like a little mini game. So it's going to give you 4 charges, and then it's going to start accumulating all the damage you dump into it. And it will explode if you meet a certain criteria to win the minigame. And to win the minigame, you have to cast 1 Arcane Blast, 1 Barrage, and 1 Missiles. Those sound awfully familiar, don't they? So let's wait until we already have clearcasting. That way we guarantee that it will be available. So we'll get some charges because we don't want to start this week. And let's look for clearcasting. There's the clearcasting. So we'll touch on them. Missiles. And let's go with Blast Barrage combo. You see that explosion? You see how I did the minigame, and then I recovered charges. I already had a plan. I already knew I had Orb, and I knew I was going to recover those charges. So, quick review of each one. Blast. Blast. See how we got Impetus? That means you did it correctly. Alright, let's see if we can't get another clearcasting. Okay, there's clearcasting. And then what was our next one? It was Barrage Blast, I believe. So we'll Barrage to get our charges and Blast. And we got Impetus again. Why I keep mentioning Impetus is that it is a talent that ultimately directly competes with Evocation, which is a ramp. What it does is it essentially restores all your mana, but why you're really doing it is to ramp up your intellect. We'll get into the talents later, but I just wanted to address why I kept mentioning Impetus. So we have a few other spells that we've been looking at, and you may notice this has been lit up for a little while. What this is an AoE stun. And if you're familiar with Dragon's Breath or a Incapacitator Totem, they do the same thing. So you use this kind of on cooldown. Whenever it lights up like this, that means that this talent has been fulfilled. And you've used enough arcane splinters that your supernova is going to hit like a truck. And the overall damage, if you keep this on cooldown, is higher than this. But this is a active thing you have to do, and this is kind of passive. So we'll keep that on cooldown, and usually the mobs are, casting something at that point anyway. So just use it and use your AoE stun and be a team player. So there's that. And we haven't gone over this one yet. Well, this one is Arcane Explosion. And Arcane Explosion should ring a bell because it can be consumed via clearcasting. So instantly got clearcasting there. So when I cast it, I'm going to receive 2 charges. And I cast it one more time without clearcasting. 1 charge. Wait, I got another precision off of Arcane Explosion. Okay, so let's consume it. We got another precision again. Well, now we can just use one of our combos that we want, can't we? You see how we're using the same set of combos with Nether precision, regardless of the spell that procs it. Isn't that neat? What's this guy over here? This is Arcane Surge, and this is one of my favorite spells in the whole game because it looks really cool. This basically restores all of your mana, and it also increases how much damage you do. So we're wanting to think about this, okay? This accumulates all the damage over its course. You do the minigame, it blows up. That's a lot of damage here. We're going to want to touch here before we surge here. So let's do that. And here's a special little cool thing. Arcane Surge gives you clearcasting. So let's think about that. If I use this, after I use this, and get clearcasting, well, this requires this, and this, right? So I've already got this. So I don't need clearcasting before I start, like I did last time, remember? I'm going to get it from Arcane Surge. So let's do that. Let's plan all this out. I'm going to touch, surge. That gives me clearcasting. Use clearcasting. That turns it into Nether precision, right? And then I've got 2 charges of orb. So I might as well just Barrage Orb Barrage. That way I can maximize barrage. So let's see how that works. That is a lot of stuff going on there. See, I'm not even pressing anything at this point. I'm not even pressing anything. And there is a whole lot going on. And I think that is part of the deterrent for some people with Arcane Mage. Because there's just so much going on. But I'm here to tell you, look right here in the middle of your screen. This is half of what you have to do. Right here. So the only thing we haven't talked about at this point is this guy right here. And this is shifting power. It reduces all these cooldowns by 12 seconds. So let's get everything on cooldown so you can see everything kind of in action. And let's do it kind of logically here. We know we have touch available, so we'll get rid of our charges, get our charges, do the touch minigame. Okay, everything should be on cooldown now. Then I'll shifting power and watch. You see all these things, all the timers. That's a great way to keep orb aligned as well. What shifting power is think of it like the captain of a ship. It kind of directs where everything goes. It directs when your surge comes off cooldown and your touch, which should be linked spells. So always, always, always keep shifting power on cooldown. It helps keep the rotation aligned, which will become really important as you get better at it. For now, I want to switch gears and talk about some talents. The talent choices I'm currently using are based on the Dragonflight ones that I used all Dragonflight. It's essentially transposed over to the War Within, and I absolutely love this spec. We're going to go through 3 other ones here, but what I wanted to really zoom in on with this is actually, if you type in Barrage, which is your that middle one here, this one, this spec utilizes almost everything Barrage can offer, and that's where your DPS comes from in this spec. Now, this spec has a slightly different playstyle. If you notice here, I have Impetus, the thing I've been going on and on about. If played correctly, Impetus can have about a 20% uptime, and it will do more damage than this will do. But it requires a little nuance and deep knowledge of the rotation. But you can also use it as kind of a passive thing, and if you use it as a passive kind of thing, you may only see about a 6 or 7% uptime. So technically, this would be better, but if that's not what you want to do, this is totally viable. Even just using it as a passive, and that's the beautiful thing about Arcane in the War Within, is that all these specs are very, very accessible. For example, if we had this spec and you said to yourself, well, I don't really want to do that minigame. Well, you can go over here, and this is Nether munitions. And I really like Nether munitions because it's almost like a gotcha kind of talent. It detonates after your touch the Magi this year. After this expires, the one where we were doing the minigame, you don't do the minigame anymore. But when it expires, every mob around you takes 8% more damage. So now we have a quantitative value that we can use. And what you really technically want to do is, when you use touch, you don't want to use it on a full mob, full health mob, and you don't want to add a bunch of damage into it. You want to add it to the mob that is about ready to die. And as soon as it dies, that 12 seconds of 8% damage supersedes the alternative of letting it accumulate. So it's kind of a gotcha talent, but even if you don't use it that way, it's still really effective. Again, this is by far the most beautiful talent tree I've ever seen created by Blizzard. Or if you didn't want, say, Impetus, you can easily drop down and get Evoke. So let's take a look at another one here. This is a ramp variant. And what this one relies on is kind of ramping up their damage with Evoke. So I'm actually going to show you these if you want to stick around and see them. So with this talent tree, I'm looking around and I'm thinking, okay, it's got Evoke, so I have to use that. It's got the minigame, the Spark, right? And it's not overly concerned with Nether Precision, because all of these that have that in there, let me show you. All these here, they kind of have it in here, and actually this is too. They don't have it. So Nether Precision, not really a big deal. But what it does have is high voltage. It's basically your arcane missiles can spread every 4th, and they give you charges. So let me show you. We'll start with getting what? Clearcasting, right? Okay, there's clearcasting. And what we can do is clearcast Barrage, and now watch this. I'm using missiles. I just keep using missiles. You see that? So they give you charges, so that you can barrage more often. What does this spec tell you? It tells you charges, right? It tells you, I like charges. Give me charges, spend me some charges. If that's your kind of playstyle, if that's what you're back and forth, do it. Have a blast. Again, totally a viable spec. Totally a viable spec. We are going to address Evoke here. The ramp I was talking about is you evoke before the fight even starts, and how I like to think about it is it's over the course of like 4 seconds or so that this cast is channeling, and I equate that to about 8 globals. So if you had 2 mages standing side by side, you would cast Evoke and then be done, and by that time they could have had out several instant casts. So that's the comparison or the trade-off that you take whenever you take Evoke. But let me show you how to ramp this up. Nothing else changes over here. We're still going to do our stuff. We're still going to do our little tripod up here. We're still going to recover. We're going to do the same stuff, okay? But the difference is we're going to evoke before, okay? So I'm evoking, and it's all gone. All gone. You got to make sure it's all gone. And here we go. I'm pretty sure we had the minigame, so I'll play the minigame. Oh, look at that craziness, huh? So yeah, that's crazy. The Arcane Surge is almost off cooldown, shifting power. And that's this spec in a nutshell. It looks fancy, it is pretty cool, and because of Evoke, I usually hate on Evoke, but I don't really hate Evoke. Evoke is great for targeted damage. For example, there's a big baddie with a couple tiny little minions or whatever, and it's obvious the big baddie needs to die. Having Evoke ready for that boss or that little mini champion boss is a game changer. It really is. To be able to say, all my damage on you right now, or well, in 4 seconds. It's absolutely amazing. So that's this spec. Let's take a look at the second one. See, this one's changing up some stuff. It's giving us Impetus, and it's also utilizing Barrage a little bit better. You see, it's got the Barrage talents here, and then Impetus. But it's also telling me I'm kind of hands off with the mini game. You know, I don't want to do the Spark mini game. I'll just throw out my touch the Magi and set it and forget it kind of thing. And that's fine too. Again, totally viable spec. You'll notice it's also a ramp spec. You see that? And it also has high voltage where your arcane missiles give you charges. So that's something to keep in mind there. And let's look at just a pure single target. No messing around. I only want to hit one object. You'll notice it relies on nether precision. So to utilize this spec, you have to be good at nether precision. Oh, look, it also has Impetus. You see that? So it's relying on a deeper knowledge of the spec, and it has this, which you're getting more charges and you're spending more charges. So if you can imagine this in your head for a second, you're getting a bunch of charges and you have nether precision down pat, and your barrage is buffed up. So that tells me your combo isn't going to be Blast, right? It's not going to be Barrage Blast. It's going to be Barrage, because you're going to be having so many charges coming in. So again, this is like one of the other specs we talked about, but it has a ramp. So if you like going back and forth, it also has that ramp element to it. So those are the talents here. Let me see. So what we're going to do now is we're going to switch over to Sunfury. We're going to use my preference spec, and we're going to directly transpose it onto Sunfury. And the cool thing about Sunfury is once you know all the Spellslinger stuff, you're only really adding one thing, and that has to do with Burden of Power. Burden of Power is this guy here. And it's basically every 6 blast or barrage, you get Burden of Power. So let me show you what it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now on our 6th one here, we're going to get Burden of Power. And that increases the damage of blast or barrage. So, what do we know about clearcasting? We know that after we clearcast, we have nether precision, right? And that Burden of Power buff increases barrage damage. So, we know barrage releases all of our charges, and Orb recovers those charges. So now we've got a plan. We've got a game plan here. So what we're going to do is whenever we get 6 blasts or barrage, we know that Burden is going to pop up. So if we have Clearcast, what we can do is as soon as we see Burden, we will use missiles or explosion. We'll use missiles because we're far away. We'll use missiles to get the nether precision, and then use the barrage to use that Burden of Power buff. Okay? Now, after that Burden of Power buff, you get another free barrage that also does something pretty cool. Let me show you. 3, 4, 5. Alright, now on this next one. Got it? We're going to clear cast. Recover some charges, get some charges. We're sitting pretty. We get charges, release. Now, I know that kind of went pretty quick. Did you see that? Do you see that firefall down there? That was from whenever your Arcane Barrage lit up. Let's see if we can do that again. I'm just using 6. You can use whatever combo you like or whatever situation you're in. I'm just doing 6 barrages just to get this Burden of Power pretty quickly. And then here comes the meteors. You ready? Boom. Isn't that cool? Alright, now let's start incorporating in some kind of rotation. Now, we know we just used 2 barrages, right? And it's every 6. So, 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to hang on to this because I know in another blast I'll have burden. There we go. Consume the burden with barrage, recover our charges, and consume the barrage again, and here comes the fire. So that's really the only difference, is how you consume barrage. What Burden of Power is doing is it's asking you, what combo should you use now? What's best? And like a shortcut to this is, when you get Burden and you have clearcasting, well, you know that you'll get Burden, use clearcasting, get Nether Precision, consume 1 stack of Nether Precision with Barrage, and then recover it with Orb, and then Barrage again. And if you don't have clearcasting, well, just use Arcane Blast and try to hang on to a clearcasting next time, see if you can get it. I wanted to thank you for your time in watching this video. I know it's our most valuable asset, so thank you for sharing some of it with me. And I want you to remember that complex things are formed from simple things. So let's keep on keeping it simple.